disappointment. So, did we get the turtle? Well, the short answer is not today. The long answer is a lot more complicated. When I began doing this crazy scheme to get the RV and to do the modifications to it, I did my due diligence. I contacted the public health department and the people certifying it, and I ran it by the guy. He said, well, this sounds like a great idea, or at least a workable idea. I said, here's what it is. This is what I plan on doing with it. Towing my 5,000-pound barbecue pit all over the place, and then, putting a sink in there, and maybe slapping some paneling on it. And boom, food truck. It's enclosed. It meets all the standards already just by being an enclosed unit, with the electrical system, the hot water heater, the pump, the waste container locations, and the draining, and all these weirdly specific little things. And so the only big piece of equipment that I could see it lacking really was a 3-compartment sink. It's NSF, it's got to be curved around the edges for easy cleaning, and just a lot of weird little things. I've looked all over the internet for them, and they're about $500 for the kind that we need. 14 by 10 by 10 would be enough probably to service a full-size hotel pan. And so I did my due diligence. The guy, when I initially contacted him like 3 or so weeks ago, he said, yeah, that sounds great, it'll be good. Blah, 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 blah. I don't see any problem with it. And I said, great. So then I started this enormous process of securing the RV. Very suspiciously, a little too suspicious. They had like the perfect RV 5 minutes away from where we live. Like the perfect one. It's rated to tow exactly where my pit is. It has 4-kilowatt generator. It's got 60 pounds of propane, which is like the limit for here in our codes. That you don't need some special extra certification for. Like if you need a 100-pound cylinder or something, you got to get a special certification for that. 60 pounds, like ours is like 59 pounds, or it's gonna be maybe on the 14-gallon cylinder. The finances lined up. A lot of things just like worked out. It was eerie. Yeah. It lined up in such a suspicious way. Then we got it inspected by an independent mechanic. And at first they're like, no, we're not going to do that. And then I'm like, well, then we're not going to buy it because there's a lot of really good reasons to get it inspected by an independent mechanic rather than your mechanics. They finally agreed to take it to the guy that I talked to and managed to do that one day, and it came back with a spectacular bill of health. We checked the differential fluid, the transmission, the coolant, looked at the frame, looked at the grease points for the E350 chassis, checked out just all of the stuff that you can, all the codes on all of the subunits of the vehicle, this thing has like been super well maintained. I'm like shocked. The price was right on it, the finances lined up, and the idea was cleared by the public health people. So it gets to today, and today was the day. Today is the day that we have been waiting for anxiously. I got 4 hours of sleep last night. I woke up at 5 a.m. unable to go back to sleep. I had a dream about having to move my barbecue pit at a vending site location, like one of the state park type deals, several times because it was just like this space conflict and just like weird stuff. Like there's a lot of stress on this because it's a huge commitment and a huge purchase. It gets about an hour away from us to start the closing process, where we do the walkthrough, we talk with the technician, we sign all the papers, we fight the finance manager for all of the little fruits of the finance tree. It's only an extra $10 each month. Just get the extended warranty. Just get it. Just get it. No, we were ready. In the last second of my mental cognizance of this stress-fueled day, I decided to call the public health people back, because that's really, the entire intention of this vehicle. Everything that we want to do with it is tied into the viability of being able to food truck it. I'm fairly confident in my ability to negotiate those tasks in a way that is going to produce the food truck. So I call up there. Now, this time, I talk to a different inspector / certifying agent for the county, right? They are good cop, bad copping me. She says that it is pretty much impossible for an RV to get certified. And I said, what? That's absolutely contrary to what I heard 3 weeks ago, which started this entire giant process. And she went into the fact that there could be absolutely no upholstery in the vehicle. And I said, well, that's not what I heard last week. You know, what about the car seats? What about the overhead camper sleeping thing? You know, I know that the sinks where the dinette set's supposed to be is going to have to be removed, of course. In the bed, she said there can't be a bed in there. And I said, there's other rigs with beds in them. She's like, yeah, but you can't have a bed in there. And I said, well, what if I pull the mattress out and just set it in the garage when we want a food truck? Previously, it was made to be the ice would be okay. It would be sufficient. Today, it was not. Ice was absolutely not sufficient. So there's a workaround for that too. You can actually get a deep freeze, like a 5 cubic foot deep freeze, one of the top open ones, and modify it with a thermometer that is basically an intermediate that cuts off power to it once the temperature goes over a certain or below a certain point. So it can basically operate in fridge temperatures for a lot less money than a fridge costs and a lot less power than a fridge uses, weirdly enough. And, you know, 5 cubic feet, that's plenty. That's a ton of food for like a one-day food trucking event. They're good cop, bad cop me. And she's telling me that it is basically impossible, that every single idea that I've had for this is just not gonna work. And I'm like, why? And so she sends me the regulations that I've already looked over and an application 30 minutes from our appointment time at the dealership. And I start making this big Word document, right? This huge Word document where I lay out everything I have about this. I've got the floor plan. I get the technical specs off of a manufacturer's website. I write up our menu and I explain the workflow of it. I explain all of the equipment that I'm going to purchase, because it fits within their parameters, like the 2 drain boards, the being able to clean your largest dish, the right dimensions for the sink because it fits in the dinette. So many things. And I fill out the application with all of the information that I have about it, and then I send it back. It's already past the appointment time by this point. The day is pretty much shot. I call them back, and then I talk to the good cop again. I get a completely different message. Like, it's crazy. I sent out my document, my long, like 8-page explanation of this is exactly what is going to happen, what our plans for all of this, and what we're going to do to get these inside of your parameters. And he says that's great. He says that this is entirely doable. He said that the bed's just not going to be a problem. Just put a piece of vinyl panel over it. But in the doorway, he said that the little overhead sleeping cab with the bed's not gonna be a problem. He's like, I just use that as a storage unit. Yeah, the carpet on the ceiling is gonna have to come off, but we were planning on doing that anyway. He said we could use a lot cheaper paneling than stainless steel, and I'm like, well, that sounds great. You know, that puts us a lot closer. It's a completely different message. So here I am. I'm torn on this. We ended up postponing it. We pushed out the closing for another week because one of the things that the good cop did tell me, that we have to not only meet the county regulations, but we also have to meet city regulations to vend food. So let me just pull up some of the city versus the county. So to get the county health certified, and that's who I've been talking with so far, Knox County public health officials. The good cop says that it's entirely doable for us to meet it with basically the original plan, right? Without really anything past what I had originally understood to be the pathway forward into converting this to a food truck. The bad cop says it's pretty much impossible. And then so I asked the good cop, I'm like, so can we just request you to get the inspection? And he chuckled. And I was like, well, what if she does the inspection? Are you guys on the same page? He said, no, we go ahead, we do it together. I'm like, yeah, but y'all are telling me 2 different things. The city requires the city and county business licenses, so that's going to happen. We're going to have to LLC up. Tennessee Department of Health license, that I'm assuming, I'm going to have to check on this, is the food truck certification, mobile food unit certification, driver's license, vehicle registration, the fire department inspection report, that involves fire extinguishers for your systems and a fume hood. But only if you have a griddle or a deep fryer, which I have both of those. They're on my pit, which is going to be external. And I made that very, very clear that the food will all be cooked on the pit externally, then transported into the food preparation area inside the enclosed space. That's part of the codes. And that's where we're going to turn it from food in a hotel pan into food that we put into a plate and then like we're going to shred the pork and like unwrap the ribs and, you know, take the lid off of the wings, you know, and put it into hot holding, or we're going to find some place to stick a 5 cubic foot freezer, because he said we didn't even have to remove the bed. Like, it's not even an issue. Like, they have electrical inspection report. Whatever certifying body is over the electrical viability of the systems, you know, that we're getting an RV that is, it should already be that way. I'm going to double check that, of course, if we go through with it. Permit fee payable to the city of Knoxville, of course. You know, everybody takes a little bite at every level. Automobile liability insurance and endorsements. Now, this is not your standard automobile liability. This is a $3 million policy. I don't know what the heck even, where do we even get that? So I'm going to have to figure that out. Workers' compensation insurance and endorsements. If I die, I die. I mean, that would be fine with me. Signed indemnification agreement. I'm going to have to figure out what the hell that even is. Acknowledgement of stormwater best management practices. I'm assuming that this is your disposal. Like, this is your agreement to dispose of your wastewater properly. Color photo of vehicle. And then we get into the nuts and bolts of it. So for like the fire inspection, we got the fire extinguisher, the hood, the ventilation and hood / fire suppression system that I have come to understand that we're exempt from based on the equipment that we have. Liquid petroleum / propane LP cylinders have to be secured upright. Well, ours technically isn't, but it's also a fixed system. So I don't know. We're going to have to get that looked at. So the electrical inspection, different inspector, different fee. Electrical supply, all the power cords are continuous. Appliances, health department regulations, standard electrical stuff. Like if it doesn't pass this inspection, like it should pass it when we buy it from the dealership. Like, this is some standard stuff. Then, all kinds of other things. But, you know, we were already planning on doing an LLC, of course. We have to generate the money for that first. We can't just LLC out of thin air, because it's going to cost us like $1,000 between the fee to submit the application and then the fee to pay the attorney to write up all the legalese documents that protect us from somebody stubbing their toe on our pit or whatever. So we have pushed out the closing day for a week from now. I'm going to try to make all of the phone calls that I need to make to all of these licensors and certifiers. And, you know, I'm going to try to eliminate all of the assumptions that I've made, because that conversation with the bad cop made me absolutely terrified, because I was an hour away from jumping off the edge and just seeing where life would take me. And now I'm apprehensive to the point where I'm reconsidering the whole thing. This isn't even discounting the main conversation that we had. He's like, well, you're going to have a commissary agreement. And this is the good cop. And I said, a commissary agreement? What do you mean a commissary agreement? Like, isn't the mobile food unit certification, doesn't that make it a certified facility? He says, well, yes, but actually, no, you can't prepare food at your house. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm an NSF Serve Safe certified manager. Does that play into the equation? He's like, well, that's good, but yes, but actually no. And I'm just like, so we can tow the pit to the commissary, cook the stuff, tow it home, then load up, then go then to the food truck park? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Like, what difference does it make if it's on my property or not, if we're doing the literally the exact same thing? And when I presented the argument to him in this fashion, and this is why he's the good cop, he came around and he said, well, I mean, I guess that's okay. And I was like, well, that's good, but I'm gonna need you to say that clearly for my wife, because she is shrewd and the information from me is biased and suspect. I get him to basically rehash the summary of this conversation that we had for 20 minutes, doing a thought experiment where I presented multiple hypotheticals of iterations of me cooking in some capacity in varying locations with certain things. And finally, we concluded that for Knox County, yes, I could cook on my property with my same barbecue pit that I'd be cooking anywhere else with, loaded up in my food truck when it's food truck. And the same way I do it, either hot or cold holding, go to wherever I'm vending, and then vend. Yeah, that was a journey. It was a journey of a conversation for us to both arrive at the same point, a logical conclusion. But all of this stuff has just made me very disheartened. So now I'm not necessarily reconsidering, but it went from a green light to a yellow light. And now I am going to eliminate exhaustively all of the assumptions that I had employed before, which if you talk to the good cop were fine assumptions, and if you talk to the bad cop, they are deal breaking things. It's unfortunate that it's this complicated, and I really wish it was more simple. It's so prohibitive to try to enter into this legal arena and be correct, because the ironic thing is that if you do get caught vending without a license or whatever, it's like a $50 citation and you just get a slap on the wrist and you move on. It's like, if you're doing well enough, that could just be a business expense. Why would you put 1,000 obstacles in the way of somebody who is just like desperately trying to become self-employed versus maybe lowering the bar a little bit? And I don't want to say that I don't understand why they have all of the regulations they do. I get it. Food safety is a really big deal. Like, I know food safety inside and out. I have employed the principles of food safety everywhere I have gone and everywhere I've worked, and it's a really, really serious thing. That being said, you can employ the principles of food safety without paying $200 fees for applications, inspections, and the bureaucracy. You don't have to feed every little piglet in the chain to make sure that somebody has safe food to eat on the back end. And that's infuriating to me. I know that other people who operate businesses, this is just normal, and they're probably laughing like, ha ha ha, welcome to the club, buddy. But it's, for somebody who's just trying to break into it for the first time, it's prohibitively frustrating to a point where it's the risk of not being able to carry out my intention with this vehicle, which is to vend here locally in Knoxville as a food truck. Like, I can go to a food truck park, open up my little window and say, come get barbecue. People give me money and I give them pork or whatever. The valley between that point and where I'm at is just enormous. Because that's going to be county certification, equipment purchase, modification, city inspection, fees, business licensure, and registration with the state, with the county, with the city. It's crazy that this is the system that we operate within to try to get anywhere. It's crazy to me that this is the way it is. And I've seen this in its final form, which is U.S. healthcare, and it's like 10-fold, 100-fold more disgusting there. But just being where the rubber meets the road, as somebody who is just largely disconnected from that, I get to watch it like as an observer, basically as a little cog in a machine, and there's a big storm going on over here trying to get paid by insurance companies. No, actually being where the rubber meets the road and being confronted with all these fees and the bureaucracy, it's insane. Like, it was hard enough to get tags for my barbecue pit because it was a custom fabrication, having to go through that process. How many steps of the chain that it had to go through just to get tags to make it legal for me to travel to a different state. To get the tags, I had to get the financial documents in order to apply for basically a certificate of ownership. And because the guy that I dealt with wanted to be paid in cash, and he liked to send out his invoices as Microsoft Word documents. There's a really funny story about how that happened. We're not going to go into it, though. That would be a breach of the non-disclosure agreement. At the county clerk's office, I finally was able to get a certificate of ownership for the trailer. And then I was able to get a VIN number assigned. So I had to go take it to a state trooper's weigh station and get it inspected to make sure that it met all these weird little regulations that I'm sure truck drivers and people who do transport know all about. It almost did, and so we had to do some stuff to it to make it road legal. And then once he stamped a VIN into it, then I had to apply for a title. And then once I got the title, then I can go get some tags for it. But like, it's crazy. The bureaucracy is crazy. Every single step in that chain, it takes a little bite. It's a million little bites. Anyway, I guess I'm done ranting about it. I thought I would just, that's the intent of part of this channel, is to show you the process. It's not all glamorous. It's not always going to be fun. And I wanted to share with you some of the frustration that I had today trying to do this and trying to carry out what I had intended to do and it's infuriating. But it's good to not jump off the edge of that cliff yet. So I'm going to make about 1,000 phone calls this next week and go through 1,000 little phone mazes trying to get to a human to ask them some really weird questions that they don't know the answer to, and they're going to give me another number, and I'm going to go through another phone maze, and we're going to play this game until I have eliminated as many unknowns as I can possibly eliminate from this setup, to see if it's even really a realistic prospect to do this. Because the good cop says it's fine and the bad cop says absolutely not. So I have to figure this out. Thanks for tuning in. Maybe I'll give you a good update later.